Tal Ben Shahar, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me on your show.
How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
Good. Well, you're an expert on happiness, so if you weren't doing too well, I'd be a little worried for all of our sake. Let's just dive into it. What is happiness?
So let me start with that. Being a happiness expert doesn't exempt one from being unhappy at times.
Okay, thank God.
One of the barriers to happiness actually is the expectation that one can be happy without experiencing painful emotions. But these are, part of life, and certainly during these difficult times, they're a part of any life. So today I'm doing well. 3 days ago, not well at all.
Okay, well, so Tal, you taught two of the most popular classes at Harvard. You're a global speaker around the world on the subject of happiness, consulting, the top companies in the world on this thing. What is it about happiness that entices people, and why is it a field that needs to be studied the way that you approached it?
So the reason why people are interested in it, I mean, there are various. One is that it's in our nature to pursue happiness. Aristotle talked about it. Confucius talked about how our highest end, the goal to which all other ends lead, is happiness. So
Maslow as well, right?
it's our nature to do that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Maslow as well, Abraham Maslow with the pyramid. At the end, it's self fulfillment and getting to that
It's
arena.
self-actualization, exactly. And some people call it happiness. Some people talk more about a sense of meaning and purpose. But essentially, we're looking for the good life, whatever that good life is. And here comes the importance of studying it, because there are a lot of misunderstandings about what happiness is. For example, when people expect that happiness is a constant high, that actually limits their ability to experience happiness. When people think that happiness is just about emotions, that's a problem, because happiness is also about a sense of meaning and purpose. Happiness is also about cultivating the mind body connection, and so on. And the reason why it's important for it to become a field of study is because today we have, or over the years, we have a lot of self help work, new age work more recently, that tell us, okay, here are the three things you need to do to be happy.
Right.
The one secret of the good life. These things unfortunately don't exist. It takes work, and like success in any field, success, quote unquote, in being happy, i.e., becoming happier, also takes work and takes understanding of the antecedents of what it takes to be happy.
Right. So what is, I mean, there is a proliferation of all these self-help books and videos and speakers that are, they bring the promise of if you listen and you do these three steps, you'll be happy. So what in your mind constitutes a process or a path to feeling more self-fulfilled? And now I'm asking just for myself because I want to become that way.
Yeah, so what are the things that we can do to become happier? Well, there are various things. The first thing, accept, embrace all emotions, regardless of what they are. Rather, when we fight, when we reject painful emotions, they intensify. So, accept, embrace. In other words, the foundation um, of happiness is actually allowing in unhappiness.
Right.
Second, I mentioned the mind-body connection. Physical exercise. There's a lot of research showing that regular physical exercise has the same effect on our psychological well-being as our most powerful psychiatric medication.
Wow.
So exercising regularly is key. Whether we do it at home, whether we do it outdoors, move it.
So you do it, right? You
Third,
swim, you do yoga, you do yoga, you run. You're a very active person yourself.
yes, I am. And you talk about yoga. Yoga, there's another element here of mindfulness
Yeah.
and being present, whether it's through meditation, whether it's through a yoga practice, whether it's listening to music or engaging in a conversation and really being present to the person. That has numerous benefits, psychological and physiological. And relationships, number one predictor of happiness is quality time we spend with people we care about and who care about us. Now, ideally, we want to do it face to face,
Right.
three dimension, not virtually. But if we have no choice, then virtually is a lot better than nothing at all.
By the way, regarding virtually, so this is very relevant to our times, and I'd love to shift the conversation soon to what does it mean to contain these emotions we're feeling right now. Is there any research or any thought behind the connections we're building virtually versus in person, especially regarding to the emotional effect that it has on us?
Yeah, look, ideally, we want to have those face-to-face interactions where we're sitting in the same room and can, literally or metaphorically feel each
Right.
other. Um, Having said that, um, in these times, when that is not an option and when there's social distancing, um, we need to do what we can, and what we can today is interacting online, and that's okay. You can form real relationships virtually. It's
Sure.
interesting, there's research on introverts and extroverts, and interestingly, introverts have a much higher likelihood of forming intimate relationships that start online.
Huh.
And the reason is because it's sort of, it's easier. It's an
Yep.
icebreaker. You have more of a barrier or protection.
Yep.
But again, but virtual is no substitute for the real thing.
Right, sometimes I look back and I listen to my grandparents' stories back from the Haganah and the formation of Israel, and friends who were lived in a kibbutz, and one of the common things that they're telling me is, back then it was simpler times. We would go on the tractor and we would just knock on each other's door to talk, and we didn't have all the stress that we have today, and we were happier. So, in your mind, you've been studying this for so long. What do you see, as civilization as a whole? Are we moving to a less happy place as a result of all of this sort of artificial communication? Or are we able to overcome that and achieve similar levels of happiness that, my grandparents experienced?
No, it's very clear that our the technology leading to us being away from one another is leading to less happiness. You even look at the national levels of happiness. The happiest countries in the world are not the ones you would expect, meaning it's not the US, it's not the UK, it's not Germany, it's not Singapore or Korea. The happiest countries in the world are some of the Scandinavian countries. Israel is among the happiest countries in the world.
Why is that?
Colombia is among the happiest countries in the world. And the question is, why these countries and not the wealthiest countries in the world?
Right.
Well, the one common element and among these countries is that there is social support there. That relationships, friendships, family relationships are a priority. You know, yes, of course, you need the basic needs have to be met for happiness.
Right.
So the poorest countries in the world are not the happiest countries in the world. Also, countries where there is war going on, war zones, obviously
Sure.
they're not happy. So you need, you were talking about Maslow, the basic fundamentals: shelter, food, safety, security. But after that is fulfilled, the next essential element for happiness is the relationships, the social support. And in our culture today, it's really being eroded in so many parts of the world. By the way, also in the happiest countries in the world. So I did research last year in Latin America, perhaps the happiest region in the world. Not so for the new generation, because the new
Huh.
generation don't meet as often face to face as their parents did.
Right. So they're sort of in an in between phase where they're trying to adopt these new world technologies, but there's that's very very interesting. I would love to hear a little bit about these classes that you teach at Harvard, and what is it like? Give me your 2 cents on teaching some of the most popular classes at one of the most prestigious universities in the world. From more of the lecturer's perspective, you're influencing hundreds of brilliant students at a time. Why are people so excited about these classes that usually I'm guessing are not in line with the major that they're choosing?
Yeah, so first of all, today I'm no longer at Harvard. Today I'm teaching at Columbia. Um, but the reason why students, whether at Columbia or at Harvard, are attracted to a class on happiness is because ultimately that's what we all want. So whether we go into investment banking, or whether we go into teaching, or medicine, or not for profit, it doesn't matter.
Right.
What we all want is more happiness. What we all want is more happiness for people we care about. So this is a highly practical class. Yes, I teach theory. I talk about all the research in the field. This is not a self-help seminar.
Yeah.
At the same time, everything is applied. So when I teach, I have a few criteria. One, it has to be based on rigorous research. Two, it has to be relevant to the students' lives, meaning it's something that they can take, apply, whether it's today or 5 years hence when they have when they get married.
Right.
And the third thing, there are always things that I apply in my life. So I never teach things that I don't try out and don't use. Doesn't mean that I've mastered these things, but it's things that are part of my life. So it's with these three criteria that has attracted many students, because I can speak about it firsthand, because it's relevant to their lives, and because they know that it's based on science.
Yeah, and I mean, with the other epidemic that's happening in the U.S. with mental health, I see it at Stanford. This rigorous trial and error by the institution to try and minimize the mental health issues that we have on campus, because it is very competitive and the world is moving at a faster and faster pace. We feel it. This the day you walk into campus, automatically they ask you what's your internship for the summer, and you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa! I just stepped in here, and it's really interesting. And the second you talked about how you experienced these things firsthand, I can't help but go back to elementary school, and I remember that I had this physical education teacher who would come in smelling of cigarettes and had a big beer belly, and he would tell me to run, and I kept thinking to myself, how, what? You're telling me to run? That's fascinating. So I want to shift this a
You
little
can run
bit.
his talk.
Yeah. I want to know about myself because in 5 years I see myself as a CEO of a nice company, hopefully both doing good for the world and making a good amount of money for the business. What do I have to do as a CEO to bring better culture to my employees, bring better happiness, and be happier myself?
So I would start with the end. First, you begin with yourself. Gandhi said, "Be the change you want to see in the world."
Yeah.
If you can introduce some of these practices that I talked about or will talk about, then by extension, they're contagious, and they're more likely to find their way into the lives of your employees. So what can you do? Again, lead a healthy life, and a healthy life means a life that has stress, because stress is not bad for us, and at the same time also has recovery in it. So I think of the metaphor of a racing car. A CEO or a manager, wants to function at a very high level like a racing car. But even a racing car needs pit stops. If we don't have those pit stops,
Right.
that's when burnout happens. So you, as well as your employees, need to work hard, and also know how to play hard or recover hard. So that's one. The second thing, more and more organizations are realizing the importance of psychological safety. Psychological safety is a concept introduced by Amy Edmondson, Warren Bennis, um, where it's about the feeling that it's okay to take risks, that the feeling is that it's okay to fail, that it's okay to ask questions. And having this psychological safety in your organization, and it's basically up to you as the manager to make sure that it's there. That leads to good things happening, whether good things psychologically, emotionally, and also good things in terms of innovation, creativity, as well as productivity.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And most interestingly, we're in these crazy times of Corona that are unprecedented, and people did not expect or prepare for them. So what is it like from your take as you're watching this whole thing unfold? What does it mean to society norms, and how is that going to affect overall emotional levels that we experience?
Yeah, so what's happening right now is that we're experiencing more emotions, more complex emotions, and more intense emotions. So, for instance, when people experience fear, fear levels have skyrocketed, are skyrocketing. There is a lot more anxiety, whether it's for your health, for your parents' health, for the future of the world, in terms of health, in terms of
Right.
the economy as well. There's a lot of anxiety going around, which is extreme. At the same time, there's also a great deal more gratitude right now. More and more people are experiencing gratitude for being okay. The thing, though, is that very often with gratitude comes also guilt. Guilt over, how can I be grateful now? How can I be happy now when, when there are so many people who are suffering out
Interesting.
there? So it's a much more complex set of emotion. And again, the key is to accept, embrace whatever emotion uh, comes up. Now, what's going to happen with what we're going through for the future? It depends on us. There is real potential here because I think many people are learning very important lessons. Whether it's the lessons of appreciation, whether it's the lesson of spending more time with loved ones, whether it's the lesson of being more attentive and taking better care of Mother Earth, or whatever it is. There are many important lessons that we're deriving. The question is, are these lessons going to last? Or are we going to forget and revert right back to where we were before a minute after this is over?
Right. Is there enough research about this around the world? I mean, is this a big enough topic that people are giving enough weight to? Because, as far as I'm concerning, happiness and understanding what enables people to become happier and live more fulfilled lives, it seems that out of the 24 hours of my day, I don't spend nearly enough pondering that question and taking active steps to improve my happiness. And when I look at some of the most successful people around me, I don't think they're doing enough either. So, is there enough, or what needs to happen so that we will reach a position where we're putting enough effort?
Yeah. So the key here is, I don't think that everyone should become a happiness scholar or that people should become, obsessed with becoming happier. That's actually not healthy.
Right.
What is healthy is adopting a handful of practices and then applying them, doing them consistently. So for instance, if you're a thing, you want to do meditation, by all means go take a meditation class online, perfectly good, and then start meditating for 5 minutes a day. That will have a much more powerful impact than if you go on a 10-day retreat now, and then do nothing afterwards. So small changes consistent over time. Second, physical exercise. Start exercising. You don't have to train to be an Ironman,
Right.
but 3 times a week, 30 minutes of aerobic exercise. That could be walking, or could be high intensity interval training, or whatever it is. Doing it regularly, that can make a big difference
So
in
consistency,
your life.
that's a big part of it. Consistency.
It's the biggest part of it. Consistency over time, much more important than those big changes, radical transformations that many people are looking for. First of all, it usually doesn't last.
Yeah.
And second, it's also very difficult to commit to those, and therefore we put them off. Whereas small changes are more palpable, and they're more accessible,
Right. I know.
less
I
scary.
think a lot of people with high motivation levels, and I consider myself included, it's very difficult to say, okay, I'm gonna start, let's say, meditation, and I'm gonna do it for 5 minutes a day. No, I'll jump to 30 minutes a day because if I'm gonna do something, I'll do it all the way, and it has negative effects. I experienced this firsthand. There was a marathon in Eilat 2 years ago, and I used to run, in high school and in middle school, but I wasn't in shape, and I signed up for the marathon because I don't know, I wanted to challenge myself. I ended up finishing it successfully, but I injured myself in the process. And that was a very big life lesson for me of building incremental progress. And I thought I would be happy finishing the marathon. And while I was satisfied on one hand, I couldn't help but feel that I missed something by not going through the process of achieving that milestone. And I actually started meditating every day, starting at 5 minutes, building it up, and it completely transformed my emotional levels, I think. And so I definitely agree. Tal, before we finish, I want to ask you the last question. And that is, what are 3 words that you think best describe you? And I'm especially curious to hear your answer on this.
Mhm. So the first word is family man. I know it's two words, I lied, but
I'll
family
take it. I'll
man.
take it as one.
There's one, thank you. And the second word is student. The third word is realistic.
Family man, student, realistic. I love it. Tal, thank you so much for the inspiration, for the time, and stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you. Same to you and your family. Take care.
Thank you.